Chair.
Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Well, what a bunch of weasel words. What a bunch of weasel words from the Minister to actually try and describe what everyone knows happened in the National Party caucus when they bottled on delivering proper health and safety systems for all workers in New Zealand. And that's what's happened. That's what's happened here, and there's no weasel words that will hide that, because, Mr Chair, what they have done is they have actually decided who's worthy and who's not worthy of the most effective health and safety representation. That's what the National Party has done, and the Labour Party believes that every worker, no matter what industry, no matter what size workplace, no matter what location of the country they come from, they all deserve the most effective health and safety representation if they want it. Because, Minister, you left one vital part out of your deliberation on this part of the bill. All the requirement was going to be was for where workers requested a elected health and safety representative, that then their employer would be required to allow them to do that. That's all that was going to be required. And when the bill went into Select Committee, that's exactly how it read. That's exactly how it read, because that is what the Royal Commission was recommending, that is what the task force was recommending, and that is what every party around this debating chamber agreed with. And sadly, because of the mean-spirited nature of the National Party and because of their lack of commitment to getting genuine health and safety representation right across the board, they have lost the support of some of the parties in this Parliament, and that is a very great shame, because this should have been a non-partisan issue, and the government has managed to screw that up and make it a partisan issue, because they have come to the defence of some of their backers and supporters and have actually bottled out on getting this legislation, having it to the strength that it first came to this House in. Mr Chair, this issue, the Minister is right about one thing. This is the crux of it. This debate is the one that I think is the one that we've got to pay serious attention to, because it is the part that says that around about 25% of the workforce, even if they want to have one of their own elected to speak on their behalf when it comes to health and safety, that's not going to happen. And that's the decision of this government. 25% of our workforce. But not just any old 25% of the workforce, Mr Chair, but the 25% of the workforce that in some instances work in the most dangerous sector in this country, agriculture. And the Minister can use the figures any way he likes to try and dumb that down, but the truth of the matter is that agriculture kills more people in New Zealand than any other workplace. That is a fact. And nothing that the Minister says is going to stop the New Zealand public from understanding that. They know about the quad bike deaths. They know about the unnecessary deaths from people who have been knocked over by stock. They know about the unnecessary deaths of people who have been killed by hay bales. They know about these things, and no amount of weasel words and moving the data around is going to convince people otherwise, and it certainly won't convince the Labour Party otherwise. We have supplementary order papers to fix this sham of pretending that the most dangerous workplaces in New Zealand are the ones that government will exempt from being required to have elected health and safety representatives in place when the workers ask for them. And I want to reiterate that last part of the sentence again. When the workers ask for them. There's your flexibility, Minister. If it's not going to be the most effective system, then the workers aren't going to want it. But that party opposite listened to the likes of Tallies, who came along with their bad health and safety records and said to the Select Committee that workers would demand these reps whether they were going to work or not. And they said they were going to demand them because they were going to, there was a hidden agenda. There was some other secret agenda, some unnamed agenda that Tallies wouldn't name, that they, Mr Chair,
Sue Moroney.
that they convinced the National Party members was going to ruin workplace health and safety and ruin the workplace. Well, Mr Chair, I put it to the Minister again, and I would like an answer to this. Is this the way in which we are going to stop, we're going to allow situations like bonus payments to happen that drive bad health and safety work practices? Is this the way in which we're going to allow the meat plant chain to be sped up against the will of the workers that causes serious harm without that being challenged by an elected health and safety rep? Because here's the other part of this part in combination that I think is very dangerous: the determination of work groups. Because I can see that what's going to happen is that large workplaces are going to restructure themselves so that they come under the provision of having 20 workers or less. If they seriously want to avoid this, that restructuring will start happening. And I confidently predict it because we've seen it before. We've seen it before when pieces of legislation have given employers an out and lesser compliance because of the number of workers they employ. They simply restructure themselves so they fall into that. And that will make New Zealand a laughingstock, again, in terms of our health and safety record. This is a country that has no excuse for having a bad health and safety record, and yet we are at the top of, we lead the tables you don't want to lead internationally over workplace deaths, and it's not acceptable. This part lets us down badly because the Labour Party's actually, would have voted for both those first two parts of this Act because they made sense. This part we will be voting against. We'll be absolutely opposing it because this is the part that dilutes it. Mr Chair, why is it that they so badly don't want to have elected health and safety reps in those smaller workplaces and on those farms? Because one of the things I did before I came to this place is I was a trainer of those health and safety reps. And the one thing that is going to make sure that those small workplaces actually comply with this Act is the fact that a living, breathing, trained, elected health and safety rep will be there to know whether this Act is being complied with or not. Because if there is not an elected health and safety rep that is trained to know whether it's been complied with or not, who is? Who's going to be in every single one of those dairy farms? Who's going to be in every corner dairy? Who's going to be in all of these small workplaces to know whether this has actually been complied with or not? Because it ain't going to be work safe. It ain't going to be work safe unless that minister is going to start employing a whole lot more work safe officers to be in all of those workplaces all over the country. That is the value of having elected health and safety reps. They are on the ground, they know what's happening, they know what's not happening, and they get trained in this legislation to know what the obligations are of all the parties. But not under this government. Under this government, even though the workers might desperately need one of their own to be elected to speak on their behalf, if they are in a small workplace with fewer than 20 employees, and unless it's a high-risk industry, and apparently now farming isn't high risk under this government, unless they're in that situation, they are not going to be able to get their voice heard on health and safety. The Minister talks about workplace participation as if it's something that just naturally happens in a workplace. Well, I put it to the Minister that Pike River Mine would have been able to have complied with this part of the Act and they would have been able to say that they had workplace participation going on in health and safety. Because every once in a while, they would meet and they'd talk about health and safety. Every once in a while, they would have meetings with their workers and preach to them about what was going to happen about health and safety. But did those workers have a voice, a genuine voice in health and safety? No, they did not. And that's become far too painfully clear that they did not. And I challenge the Minister to tell this House how he is going to ensure that worker participation systems are going to be in place where there is a genuine say from the workers and not just a toolbox meeting where they get told what's going to happen next, what is and what isn't going to happen, and how they're not going to get their ventilation sorted out, and how they're not going to get the emergency exit that they need in their dangerous workplace, because that's exactly what happened in Pike River Mine, and I believe that that's what will happen under this waffly idea of a worker participation system.